Hey guys, my name is Raven Phoenix and welcome to the Structure of Man Learn to Draw the Human Figure from your Mind Training course. Okay, so in the previous lesson we really looked at how far really we had brought the mind to understanding the structure of the human figure, right? So from the basics of the toolkit to understanding the construction of the entire skeleton system, to understanding the muscles of the skull, and then understanding the forms in this very powerful toolkit that allowed us to really do whatever we want, right? So here we saw just some of the fundamental concepts we can use to do surface anatomy, right? Understanding the muscles is key to knowing that what's going on, right? Because over here, like if the light source is different, it would things would start to show up. But we also know in our mind that the muscles really are very thin on the human head, right? So from within that knowledge, we were able to create a very realistic looking human head, right? So this style of sketching that I've showed you is just conceptual sketching, right? It's not realistic sketching style, because to do that you would have to now basically lay out the way I showed it to you and then start to really go in and start to form everything in layers, right? Either you can start out with the lights and then slowly work your way into the darks, right? But you saw the basic concept of it. So now what we're going to do is take a look at this head over here and begin to understand, okay, what else can we understand if we shine, let's say, the light kind of like from a little bit from the front like this on the top, right? So from here we want to first draw out the eyes, right? So we know that this idea here really just helps us to see conceptually what's going on, and then we can use it to now start to draw out the eye, right? This is really the fat area, right? And then here if I drew out the eye, really I'm just going to draw it out like this and just begin to understand, okay, well, what do I really want this eye to do? I'm just going to go down like this over here, right? So in here I'm going to get, let's say, like the eyelid over here. I guess I'll choose to show the eyelid over here, right? It's really up to us. How do we want to do this, right? So for the eye, I'm going to just do it like this over here, right? So here I did them kind of like small over here, right? So for this end over here, it's going to be the same thing, is that we're now going to see, okay, well, this is basically working like the same concept, and then here we're going to do this, right? We know why we get this line over here, right? And from within that, here where I did this, we're going to get it under, right? And then so over here we can do the same thing, just swing it out over here and do it this way, right? So just compare to see if you like what you're getting over here, right? So we can also in this case over here, I can actually do top of the eyelid, right? Just like this, right? The idea is not to follow this template. The idea is to help this template to help you begin to just grasp the concept, right? So once we get this, we know that, okay, all we really have to do is now think about the light source, right, in the surface anatomy. So we know that, okay, well, if the light source is kind of like facing this way, we know that we're going to really shade in these ideas here a little bit first, right? First get some shadows down over here, and we know that this is like a fat area over here, so it's really going to be coming like this, right? And this line doesn't mean anything, that somehow this is stopped here, right? You can go up above it if you wanted to, right? So here for this fat area, let's say that, okay, well, I want kind of like the fat area to be kind of more like this, so I can see a little bit more of the temple like this over here, right? So I'll do the same thing over here for this area. I'm going to do like a little bit on the side over here for the eyes, right? So once we understand this, we can now start to see, okay, Well, what we could do is really just start to shade in some of this stuff over here, right? This helps us to see some of the forms over here, and we can just use that and just start to do whatever we want really in this area over here, right? So here I'm just going to shade some of this stuff in first, start to first get like a good idea of what is it that we really want to do here, right? So here I'm just going to shade all this stuff in over here, and I know that over here where this is going to be really just, it's going to be really just dark shadows, right? So over here we can now soften this up a little bit over here. Just put down the basic layers first, right? And then here you can just make it a little odd looking here from the top, right? Just soften it up a little bit, basically is what I'm getting at, right? This line doesn't mean anything. You just use it as a guide and then start to do your own forms, right? So let's say that this idea here, we're just going to shade this area in like this over here, right? And then over here I'm just going to shade this in a little bit over here. So this will start to help us see, okay, what is it that we're getting out of this, right? So once we get this, then we can now start to think about over here that, okay, I want to show the bottom really here of this guy a little bit. So here I'm just going to shade it in again very lightly over here, and then over here we're going to like do the same thing, right? It doesn't have to be symmetrical, just do a little bit of shadow work first, right? So then you're going to get this line, and basically this line just helps us. We don't have to follow it, it's just a form idea, right? It helps us to understand about some of the basic concepts, right? The more lines you put, the older the guy's gonna get, right? So here we can just basically kind of just, for now, just put some basic idea in there. And here I'm just thinking about this as a concept here. I want to, I guess, show a little bit of some eye bags on this guy over here. Right, you can use your finger to smudge some of these concepts in. And if you don't like something, just get rid of it with the eraser. Right, so here, let's say that, okay, well, this idea helps us to see really the area of the cheekbone over here. So here we're just going to do a little more of a darker shadow over here, like this. Right, and then over here, remember that muscle that goes inside, and then you're going to get the line for the jaw. So it like sucks in. Sometimes on some people it sucks in that area. So here we're going to do that a little more lighter, right? So over here where we get this, we're just going to get like this line over here, right? That's starting to work out. And over here I'm going to do the same thing, just bring out some of these ideas here first, then really this is the area of the muscle, right? The muscle goes here, then you know that the areas over here are really going to be like kind of like sucked in over here, right? And this is only because of the way we're doing the light source, right? It's not always going to show up, but this helps you to understand how dynamic it's going to be compared to what we did over here, right? But from this point on, you can do really any kind of faces if you wanted to, right? Without any problems, because we gave the mind what it needed, right? Some kind of a mechanism to begin to understand how to get these ideas as one concept, right? So here, right? So here under the lip, we're just going to get again, like an area here that's going to be kind of dark. Over here like this, then we're going to get, right, not too dark, it's just going to come out a little bit over here. Right, some people have this, some people don't, right? It really depends. And here we're just going to soften this up. This is going to be the area for the chin, and here we'll give it a slightly double chin here. Right, so once we build some of the concepts up, then we start to put more shadows in. Right, just like this, how I'm doing it. Right, we see that, okay, well, really I want this side to be a little more darker than that one. Right, and then we start to play around with the ideas, right? So just start to think about, right? So really there's a line over here that we didn't put over here, so it'll just help us to see, okay, I'm gonna get this temple area over here like this, right? It's just going to be kind of like in shadows over here a little bit over here. Right, so we can just come in here and then slowly build it up in layers, right? Just to get an idea of, okay, is what we're doing working? Right, so usually when you go through the illustration process, you have to play around and you go through that process slowly, and slowly you start getting into it, right? It takes time to build it up, right? So there are many methods of rendering, and one is that you just put all the light layers down first and then start to develop that, right? So that's what we're really just doing. It's keeping everything light over here. So here for the lips, really just this is all going to be, again, really that idea of it being darker here on top, right? And you're just going to get a little bit here on that idea here, just like this, right? So now once you get like the lips dark, then you start to match everything else with it, right? So here under here, we're really not going to get too much of an idea here, but this here is just going to connect, and obviously it's going to be dark here in the nostril area, right? So this whole area really is now going to start to get more darker because it's under it. Where you slowly start to build up. Okay, I like the way this is, like if the nose is working for you, and then over here we'll start to now add a little more shadow work on the nose, right? It's not going to be straight, it's just going to have like a little bit of shadow to start to show some of these concepts out. Here I'm going to do a little more shadow also. So you'll begin to see how surface anatomy, again, is now being a little more dynamic. It's really based on the understanding the structure of the skull and how the muscles, like these muscles here, are just going to start to form the structures of the face, right? So it's really the skin that's really doing all the work. And if this guy was smiling, it would be much more different, right? So here I'm just going to add a little more of a shadow, make this a little more darker over here, start to build it up a little more right? Start to get more of a feel for it over here. So you'll see it's starting to look more and more realistic slowly, right? I mean, we can do this all day. It'll get super realistic by the end of the day, right? So here we're just going to do a little bit of shadow work here on the ears. Right, so the other technique is you can always look at your artwork in the mirror, right? And then that will help you to see how to render it more realistically, right? Sometimes you just have to see it from a different angle. Okay, and obviously the other thing is when you're rendering stuff like that, you should have a piece of paper so it doesn't smudge from your hand. Just really some basic common sense things. So here I'm just going to do the same thing over here. Right, so you can see like this ear is more different than this, right? It does not have to match that perfectly, right? One ear can be a little more out, right? And that's what gives it the more organic look, right? So if we wanted to make this more realistic, we can now start to get more darker, right? Which we're not going to do. That'll, right? So here I'm just going to make these a little more darker, right? So you'll see as soon as I make it dark or starts to happen, you kind of like have to balance it out. So I'm just going to finish this off by doing the iris. Right, I mean, you can get lost in the details here, right, all day. But I think we got the concept across as to how we can now use this toolkit, use the information of the muscles, and begin to just understand, okay, I get this concept under the first design of the eye, I get the bags, I get this idea here under the eye, then I get that this is all optional stuff here that if I want to show it, we get this very subtle line here. We understand how the forms is just telling us that don't, depending on your light source, just think about what you want to do. These forms mean nothing more than just understanding, okay, what's going on with the human head, like it's a wire system, right? And then it just, you can do away with them and then do your own shading, right? Just like this we did. We did the triangle over here, but then when we came over here, we're just following these planes over here, right? Understanding the planes, how to start just beginning to get the concept of it as to how dynamic surface anatomy is on the figure, right? But you've come a long way to be able to now begin to draw different types of heads all by yourself. So I'll see you in the next lesson. Thanks.